I only ever recommend one poly, and that's Ytex ProTour Blue, because it's soft and responsive and it maintains tension incredibly well. This combination is next to impossible to find, and for me, Ytex ProTour Blue is the only thing that has managed to hit that standard to such a high degree. I didn't think anything would eclipse it until I tried Grapplesnake Tour M8, and despite being super similar to ProTour Blue, this is pretty much better in every way, except for one thing. And this one thing might make all the difference if you're someone like me who's trying to find their endgame soft setup. That one thing is basically the difference in the type of softness between these two. ProTour Blue is softness in its purest form. The ball sinks into the string bed and only comes off it when it can't stretch it anymore. The amount of stretch varies with how hard you hit the ball, and that also determines how fast the ball comes off your racket. I analogize this to a trampoline, where the amount of height you gain is directly proportional to the amount of energy you use to stretch the trampoline material to begin with. I think this is why ProTour Blue feels so responsive and snappy, which is in contrast to other soft strings, because their flavor of softness is more akin to memory foam mattresses, and that makes them feel sluggish. Tour M8 softness is very similar to ProTour Blue, except it feels like there's a hard limit to its stretch that makes it feel like the string bed bottoms out. Now, there's an analogy I have to describe this, and it's one that I will reuse from my first ever review. Now, this is my couch. It's a very nice couch, nothing wrong with it, I love it. But if you notice, there's something a bit different about this than a regular couch. It's actually a platform couch, which means that all these cushions are resting on a solid piece of plywood. Now, what this couch does is that it gives a limit to the plushness that you or I would experience if we were to sit on this couch. Once you do sit on these cushions, you do feel that there's something quite firm underneath, and that's obviously this platform that is giving you that sensation. To make this analogy more accurate, I would replace the cushions on my couch with some sort of springy trampoline-like material, but really the important bit here is the bottoming out feel. This bottoming out is very similar to what Hyper-G's version of softness feels like, and this is especially true for Hyper-G Soft. But with Hyper-G, it feels like that the string bed barely gives before it bottoms out, as if the cushions on my couch were very thin, and that left my couch feeling a lot more harsher than I would prefer it. I used to play with Hyper-G before I embarked on this string journey. I even bought a whole reel of it, but despite liking it, I could never make peace with my string bed. I kept flirting and bouncing back and forth between this and ProTour Blue, and wanting both at the same time, really, for lack of a better phrase. And it's only when I hit with Tour M8 that I realized what was missing, which is that I needed more cushion. I needed my string bed to stretch more before it refused to give any further. And I know someone's going to ask this in the comments down below, which is why not just hybrid these two together? And of course, guys, I should try this, but I did not like this. The setup ended up playing a bit too muted for me, and I think that's mostly down to Hyper-G, which was my other issue with Hyper-G as a string, is the fact that it plays a bit too muted for me. The magic with Tour M8 is that the string bed gives in the same responsive manner as it does with ProTour Blue. The only other string I found this in is in Natural Gut, because that string bed remains responsive and snappy despite its softness, and the ball always comes off the string bed fast. Bear in mind that I only make this comparison with Natural Gut in the context of the type of softness that ProTour Blue and Tour M8 have. There are a whole host of other qualities that Natural Gut have, like its feel and crispness, that make it stand head and shoulders above any string, really. I'm not going to go into the rest of Tour M8's playing characteristics because it plays so similarly to ProTour Blue that I'd be repeating myself, and I've already reviewed ProTour Blue in detail. I've linked this video down in the description below, so feel free to check it out. But I want to reiterate what I said at the beginning of this review, which is that Tour M8 does everything a little bit better than ProTour Blue. It holds tension a tad bit better, you get a little bit more spin because this is 8-sided as opposed to round in the case of ProTour Blue. You definitely get more control because that bottoming out effect gives you more of that traditional poly feel, and that traditional poly feel is what leads you to swinging your racket faster, and as a result you get more power as well. If that last point went over your head, then I've got an entire video about this as well. So does that mean that ProTour Blue is dead? Not necessarily, because I think the context of your journey in tennis matters. If you're someone who's always played with synthetic guts or multi-filaments and you want to dip your toes into the poly world, then there's no better entry point than ProTour Blue. So think juniors that are advancing their play, or someone with arm issues that are on their way out and healing. But if you're already a poly player and you're starting to develop arm issues, or you just want a bit of a softer setup to relieve some of the discomfort you feel, then Tour M8 is the better option because it retains that traditional poly feel without making it feel like you're sacrificing on control too much by playing with a softer setup. I also think that these two strings are the best candidates I've ever come across to hybrid with a stiffer option. In my review of ProTour Blue, I called it the new standard for synthetic gut for advanced players because it plays so similarly to it, especially when you pair it with a stiffer poly. Yet its performance, especially with regards to its durability, is leagues ahead because at the end of the day, it is a poly. And this is on top of it maintaining tension very well, which is something that synthetic guts don't do traditionally. But for me, Tour M8 is now the standard for a soft poly because it retains everything that people traditionally love about polys, and it doesn't make you feel that you're playing with a different string material altogether. So yeah, the string journey finally ends, and Tour M8 is going to be my string of choice going forward. I'm sure someone will ask down in the comments below about hybriding Tour M8 and ProTour Blue together, and of course I tried it, but I didn't like it. I've had this theory for a while now that soft strings don't pair well with other soft strings, and this was definitely the case here. It felt like the kind of softness that each individual string had to offer got watered down, so the setup ended up playing pretty lackluster. If you want to know my thoughts on hybriding and an excellent candidate for hybriding with ProTour Blue, then you can check out this video here.